got picked up by Newcastle United. Why did you not end up at Carlisle United?
Well, it's funny you say that. I actually had the induction evening with my dad, the to sign in Foxes. So up the stairs in Foxes, went to, watch the presentation put on. I think I was 9 at the time. I was happy to sign. I didn't really know a lot about, obviously my dad had kind of kept that under wraps, I guess, and just wanted me to, as we spoke about earlier, just enjoy my football in my grassroots team. Was doing really well, as was the team locally. And then he kind of told me after that, well, on that night, what would you like to do? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, Newcastle, all there was a radius then. I think it was now an hour or an hour and a half. And he said Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough. I think it was Blackburn and Rangers. He said of all asked which would you like to join? Really, there wasn't a trial. It was just a straightforward sign up. The scouts have been watching you and they would all like you to sign. He said, I'm prepared to take you to whichever, which, as I said earlier, you probably just take that for granted at the time, but it's a big commitment. He was well behind. I remember my dad would take me. He was well behind. He was a bank manager. He was well behind on his work. So I'd see him in his office with pay. I'm saying about papers being here with the academy, but his would be stacked, and that was what he was behind. But he's behind because of me, and he was. So I'd do my session across at Newcastle 6 to 8, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and he'd be in the car like I am with a pen there, just trying to catch up on the phone most of the journey, and you don't really realise at the time, but those are sacrifices that he made to give me the best chance. So, and my mum working really hard, also, through the week to provide me and my sister the best that they could kind of afford, and yeah, and it's a real commitment on their side. So yeah, I was happy to sign until I kind of heard about, and then I went with Newcastle because that was probably the closest, and also probably at the time, not saying Rangers isn't a big club, but probably the biggest or most well known and the closest. So I just went with that, and yeah, managed to get through their academy and reserves and into the first team eventually.
How tough was that process of going from being a boy, doing the schoolboy forms, to playing in the Premier League?
Yeah, it was tough. Like having left school, Trinity School at 16, I was so homesick that first year. We were put up with a house parent in, as I said, Monk Seaton, and he was great. The house parent, really good, had a football background, so that helped. So I could lean on him. But you see your mates going to university, doing freshers, and just having nights out and having a great time, and you all think house parties, and you're just missing out. Not that yeah, you're 16, 17, and you feel as though you're missing out on your not childhood, but you're missing out on good times really. But after that first year, kind of got over that, and never really looked back. Got my own apartment after the first year with a house parent, and signed pro at 17. John Carver gave me my first pro. Even though he was leaving the club, he made sure that he went out of his way to make sure that was something that was sorted. And yeah, I remember playing in the Premier League against your Wayne Rooney's, your Ian Robbins, Didier Drogba's, your Jermaine Defoe's, and being on that very first pro contract, which was hundreds, and you're up against these guys that are on, you know. Too many zeros before I got a new contract. But yeah, it's a bit of a whirlwind, and your pay slip had come through at the end of the month, and the tax man's going, "What's going on here with the appearance bonuses?" And me that's on my first pro contract, you're getting the same bonuses as say a Michael Owen or a Scott Parker or a Kieran Dyer, a Shea Given, and so yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind, and but yeah, great experience, and forever kind of grateful for Glenn Roder, who initially was my academy director. He got the caretaker job, did really well, got them into Europe, and then he got the first team manager's job, and gave quite a few of us younger players the opportunity, which came about through injuries. But you've also kind of got to take it at the same time when you're given that you can sink or you can swim. So grateful for the opportunity, and yeah, to have played in the Premier League, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Some weekends, Paul, they could fill that place 5 times over. What's it like for a young boy going out in front of the Gallowgate, in front of all of those fans and having
Amazing, amazing atmosphere. It felt like when I played there, they would almost suck the ball in, and I felt that going back with Preston a few times when they came down a couple of times to the Championship with Rafa Benitez, and um, I've had a few heavy defeats there, and I always say, like, in the Championship throughout a number of years, there was probably only Newcastle and Wolves and probably Fulham a couple of times that were like streets above the rest of the division. It was I remember under Rafa, the way that it worked out, there was a couple of games to go, and the way the results fell, our game got moved to a Monday on Sky, and they needed a win. Or to beat us at St James's to get back into the Premier League, and you're thinking, oh God, like you don't need this. We were top half, but we weren't going to make the playoffs, and we were just not the coast, but we were just looking towards the summer, and it's been a long season, and probably overachieved for the budget that we had at Preston at the time to get into the top 10 or whatever we were, but we weren't going to make the playoffs, and they beat us 4-1, and yeah, it was a lot. It was a long night, and even like they they won the game, got promoted. I mean, in the past, like, if that had happened, there'd be a pitch invasion, there'd be a big celebration. But a club like that would expect to be in the Premier League, and the way they reacted was very much just like, I remember speaking briefly to Matt Ritchie on the pitch and saying, "Well done," and it was very much just like, "Yeah, thank you." Like, it wasn't like it was that big a deal, because their squad was still a Premier League squad. So for me, like, that was always the dream, really. Sort of enjoyed being an established, what I class myself as, a good Championship player, but that would be the dream, to get back up to sort of the Premier League, and they were just kind of like, yeah, just whatever. But that's just the levels, isn't it? It's just different.
As I say, one thing I noticed about you, sort of looking at your career, you've actually been, astute or lucky. You've actually played for teams that have got quite sort of passionate local support, Newcastle and Leeds and well,
Yeah,
Bradford. I'd
yeah.
include Carlisle in that.
Mm.
The one outlier in that lot is Yeovil. What 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 happened there?
So my time at Leeds, the probably first 12 months, 18 months went really well. Was playing, lost the first year playoff final, second year lost the playoff semi-final, and then different manager each year, basically. Signed under Dennis Wise, and Gus Poyet was the assistant. Played a lot under them, enjoyed it. As I said, lost the playoff final. They then left the following year. Dennis Wise went to Newcastle as technical director or director of football for, he told us, was, I think, £1 million a year, 2 days a week. And he said, I can fly up from London, be up there for the day, fly back, do it again on a Thursday, fly back. And he was getting paid £1 million a year. So he said that he was very honest. I remember we played Luton in London, and we had Southend on the Tuesday night. So we'd stayed down and trained at Tottenham on the Monday, and he told us after that session, "I'm leaving," and that was the reasons why. Basically, can't turn that down. And Gary McAllister came in not long after. Steve Staunton was the assistant. Played under them, and was really enjoying it. Was captain in pre-season, early part of the season. Then got groin and hernia problems. Really had an operation. Struggled. Took quite a while to get back from that. Couldn't get to the bottom of it. They thought it was a hernia. Turns out it was, groin issues that carried on from sort of the end of the playoff final that we lost at Wembley. I was sort of struggling the back end of that season with them, and then had operations on both groins to relieve the sort of tension around those areas and put more emphasis on your core, strengthen your core, and it takes the pressure off your groins, and it took me a while that second season to sort of get back. So that second half of the season, I wasn't really fit, and then Simon Grayson came in, and preferred more experience, I would say. Like, I was a young defender, I didn't have that much experience, and he preferred to bring in like I think it was Richard Naylor at the time and Paddy Kisnorbo. I think they were the chosen two, and I wasn't really playing. I was out of the picture. Um, and then the last year went on loan to Stockport in League One. It was more just to get back playing, and they were in a real mess at the time with administration that could only sign loans and frees, struggling down the bottom end of League One. But I needed to get back out there and playing. Ended up going back there, Stockport, second half of the season, just on a 6 month contract again, just to get back playing and get in the shop window, really. And then, yeah, I was out of contract that summer, and I had a few options. I think like League One teams, Oldham, Hartlepool, Yeovil. And Yeovil, yeah, Somerset, 5 hours away, but a long way. But at the time, it was a kind of a club that my agent told me that rebuilds people's careers. The manager was Terry Skiverton, who's now assistant at Wimbledon. He did a lot for me, and his assistant was Nathan Jones, who's now manager of
Yeah.
Charlton. And they were brilliant, those two. They were so modern day, such a modern day approach. So um, for the players, and quite young in terms of manager and assistant, but the sessions were really good. I really felt as though I developed as a person. You were saying about growing up, I was down there a lot on my own. Um, Rented like a thatched cottage. It was just real country life, and the people were so friendly. But yeah, it was very much, I signed 2 years. Again, it wasn't about the money. It was more to get out there and play, and that was probably my first year or 2 years where I actually played 40 plus games a season regularly, consistently, which I'd struggled till then, just whether it was injuries or changes of managers or being at bigger clubs. And then, I was captain for a lot of my time there. Did 2 years, probably played about around 90 games, 85, 90 games across the 2 years. Probably overachieved with the budget we had, mid-table League One-ish. Yeah, in League One, mid-table-ish. And then Preston came calling, and in terms of location and size of club, and they're a big club in League One. I couldn't really have hoped for better, really. And yeah, just felt right, and signed there initially only on a 1 year contract. I think there was a couple of other teams, I think Leyton Orient, but just with the deal and the cost of living down there, and I think there was Rotherham, Steve Evans at Rotherham as well. At the time, I went to Preston, and I just thought I'll go to Preston, and Graham Wesley was the manager, who character, shall we
Bit
say?
Marmite, I think, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I could
Paul, is it
tell
true
you
that you would get
stories.
4 o'clock in the morning off him, just as he was thinking off the top of his head?
No, you wouldn't get a text at 4 in the morning, but you get texts throughout the week, whether you trained well or not, or the team would normally be put in around 10:30 on a Friday night for the Saturday. And it'd be about like, we're going to go to war tomorrow, we're going over the top, and just like, honestly, I could bore you to death with like stories about things that happened in that 6 months we had together there, but it was unlike any other place or club I've experienced before. But having said all that, he gave me the opportunity, and without him, would I have had 10 great years there and 300 and whatever games? I'm not quite sure. So I appreciate the opportunity, and there was some method to the madness, but yeah, it was more often than not, it was like it was a crazy period of you know at that time at that club. But yeah, that the Oval spell was one about rebuilding and getting, regular games, and building more experience. And it was quite a young team, but it was known to be like a development club in terms of they had Alex McCarthy, the goalkeeper that I think he's at Southampton now. Stephen Colker was there, Ryan Mason, Andros Townsend, Luke Ayling, myself, Luke Freeman. There was Dean Bowditch, there was Andy Williams went to Swindon. So a lot of players, Ed Upson went to Millwall. There was a lot of players that got moves from doing well, and the club was kind of happy with that. But it was hard to build because after my first year, I remember turning up the second year of my contract, and we had about 6 under contract, and the rest are like, this is like July 1st, and the rest are youth team all like on trial, and you're like, wow, right, starting from scratch here. We finished the season quite strong, and it always kind of took a few months into the season to get a squad bedded in and an 11 or a 14 that you could rely on. And you just hope that you got lucky with the injuries and keeping people fit, because there's a few spells where we were down the bottom end of the league, but we dug in and pulled away and finished mid-table. So, but yeah, it was hard from certainly the second year, like trying to build on what you'd done the first year, because you would often lose a lot of your better players. But it was good for me, and grateful really as well, because my wife moved down there with me the first year, and we explored a different part of the country. Not even so much going back to football there. We would have days out. We probably only lived about half an hour from Exeter, so we would go to Exeter. We would go to Bath. We would go to Bristol. We would go to Bournemouth, Portsmouth, Exmouth. We would go Weston-super-Mare, Glastonbury. Beautiful part of the country. Worcester, Gloucester. There's so many. The Cotswolds wasn't a million miles away. 2 hours on the train to London, and yeah, just sort of spent our Sundays or Wednesdays off that we had that I had exploring and seeing a different part of the country,
Yeah.
which I probably would have never. When you go and play somewhere, you're just in and out to a hotel, walk around the hotel, go and play the game, back on the bus, up
It's
the
the sort of
road.
the bubble thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so grateful in that sort of sense, really, because yeah, probably wouldn't have experienced that part of the country if it wasn't for that move.
Actually, I mean, Yeovil has the same problem that Carlisle have in terms of, a lot
Yeah,
of games are a long way away, which is
yeah,
a pain for the supporters. I mean, it's also a pain for the club. I mean, this season it's been, I imagine for the Carlisle players, it must be
yeah,
very tiring, the amount of
yeah,
bus travel and train travel they've been doing for some of these fixtures. I mean, how, as a player, when you're sitting on a bus for 6 hours, do
yeah,
people have different strategies for coping, like sleeping or
yeah.
playing cards or watching videos and
Yeah, I guess when I was at Carlisle though, I think you just get used to it. Like it's not like you're sitting on a school bus. You have tables. I would often try and make sure that I was able to stretch my legs out, like so you're not just sat with
yeah.
bent knees and a straight back. The seats will recline, and you can stretch across. You can put your legs on the other seats, and you can get up, move about. They have kitchens on there. They have TVs. You can listen to music. As you said, you can play cards. Some of the lads at Carlisle would bring their games consoles and play on the table at the back and stuff like that. So yes, it's not ideal, but there was often times at Yeovil, I remember, that we wouldn't train on a Friday. The manager would just say, right, we're setting off at 8 o'clock, we're getting up to Oldham or Carlisle, wherever, we'll have a walk and a little jog in the pool tonight, bring your swim shorts, and then we'd have another walk on Saturday morning, and then yeah, and then you think at the start you think, oh, I don't know about not training on a Friday, but then you'd win the game on a Saturday, or we'd have a few good results, and you'd be like, all right, let's just do that again. So, but yeah, with Carlisle, you just get used to it. Yeah, 6, 7, 8 hours on a Friday on the M6 was just became the norm, and it didn't stop us that season that we got promoted, at Wembley from League Two. I think just it probably didn't help with some of the injuries we had along the way, but luckily we managed it. And as someone maybe say a Finn back got injured, Jack Ellis stepped in, and if a Jack Ellis got injured, then um, Joel stepped in, or Corey Whelan stepped in for Ben Barkley, or vice versa. Corey stepped in for Morgan Feeney that had spells out. So we just managed it like that. But yeah, it's just a fact, really, isn't it? Carlisle. It's at least it's on the M6. Yeovil, you get to Taunton and you've still got 35, 40 minutes on air roads after that. So you think you get to Bristol and you're like, oh, I'm not far away here. And then you've still got like another hour and a half, an hour 40 to go. So down the M6 to Birmingham and then M5. So yeah, when I've played there in the past as an away player at Yeovil, we've normally stayed around Taunton, but it's still a good 40 minutes on the A road. So yeah, it was far. And I remember the second half of the season at Yeovil, my wife had moved back home and wanted to work back here. So the second half of the second year that I was there became more difficult. I wasn't getting back home. I was literally finishing a game at 5 o'clock and I was driving straight home to Carlisle to get home at 10, half 10, having not even 24 hours at home and having to go back on a Sunday night to drive back. And the odd time we would get a Sunday and a Monday off. So then I would um, get my dad or my wife to come to the game, a Northern game, an Oldham or a Rochdale, drive me home, give me a lift, and I would have Saturday night, Sunday, Monday at home, which was great. And then I would fly back from Newcastle to Bristol, and someone from the club would pick me up. But that became more of a struggle, and yeah, that's when I kind of knew I wanted to be back more up north.
Again, just
Well,
on
you
the
bring
fitnessy stuff. I mean, it was pre-pay attack. The London branch sponsored some training kit in the gym at Brunton Park, and we
Yeah,
did little photo shoots. So we went in the gym at like I think Amy had arranged it for sort of 10 o'clock in the morning
yeah,
as the players were coming in.
okay,
And it was like going back to sort of, well, I was at Trinity as well. I mean, the
yeah,
quality of the kit was pretty dreadful. The place was
yeah,
freezing. And I thought, no wonder these guys are pulling hamstrings. And
yeah.
have you been around the new, the improved facilities in Brunton Park? Or
I think I went back to watch. I wouldn't say where earlier on in the season Braintree game. I wouldn't say where our sat was any different, to be honest. But I know there have been a lot of improvements made.
this is the player facilities, the
Yeah,
gym.
the player. No, no, I haven't been in the
All
gym.
right. Okay.
But I know that it's ongoing with the lease and the pitches up at the Sheep Mount, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think trying to get the 100-year lease.
Get your name down
And
on the list. You get in there.
yeah, so but yeah, yeah, everything's improving kind of gradually, and it's great to see. As I said to you earlier, I'm there tomorrow in the new boxes on the other side. So like looking forward to that. Be a different experience being over the other side and seeing that and meeting different people from different walks of life and supporters and different directors and things like that. So yeah, be something different. And yeah, great to see that the club, after certainly the last 2 years, suffered a lot, and the supporters have, and it's not been nice to see. So it's now nice to see that obviously it's not the league that we want them to be in, but yeah, it's good to see that they're in the race to get back in the Football League, and that's where we want them to be.
Yeah, there's
you
actually a big
mentioned
gang of London
the
branch folk there tomorrow. We sort of chosen the Tamworth game as a sort of a game at Carlisle. So there's about 30, 40 odd in one of the hospitality suites.
All right, very
The
good. So
branch.
you're there tomorrow, yeah?
I'm not, but
All
there
right,
is
okay
there is a
then.
big
We'll
gang
be
there.
over there.